So before a ball had been kicked this season in the Championship, I went ahead and predicted who I thought would be each Championship club's player of the season this time around. Let's go ahead and revisit that video and see just how right or wrong I was with some of these calls. Starting out with Barnsley. Now, I believe that Michael Willock won their Player of the Season award from last season, and the pick that I'm going to go for, maybe a bit of an obvious one, but Callum Styles I really fancy to have an absolutely top year this time round for Barnsley. Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure who I'd pick out as an obvious choice for Barnsley's Player of the Season this time around. It's been an absolute disaster for them. Maybe Michael Willock, who's been decent at the back, Bradley Collins or someone like that, but yeah, Callum Styles hasn't really lived up to the billing that we thought he might do at the start of the season. Obviously was brilliant in Barnsley's playoff campaign the year before under Ishmael, but this time around I think it's been a tough environment for anyone to thrive in. For Bournemouth, I'm going to go for David Brooks. Unfortunately for us, we've not been able to see David Brooks in much action this season as he continues to recover, and a real shame really, because David Brooks I think would have been a perfect fit into this Bournemouth side this season, and they definitely could have done with his creativity at times as well. But yeah, fully wishing the best with the recovery, and nice to see the sort of footballing community come together with the Brooks situation. Next up for Birmingham, and you know what, I've got a really good feeling about Ryan Woods this year. I don't know why, to be honest. It's not been a great season for Ryan Woods, but I think it's not been a great season for the majority of players at Birmingham this year. Woods fits into that inconsistent category, which I think applies to most Birmingham players throughout this season. For Blackburn Rovers, I think I've said this one quite a few times on the channel so far, but I am going to go for Ben Berriton. Everything seems set up for him to have an absolute cracker of a year at Blackburn this time round. Okay, thank God we're not too far into the video and I've finally got one of my predictions correct. Ben Berriton Diaz, undoubtedly Blackburn's Player of the Season. He's the third highest scoring player in the Championship at this point with 21 goals. Spearheaded the Blackburn side that looked bang on for the top six in the first half of the season. It was really his injury that sort of derailed their top six chance. Next up then for Blackpool, I'm going to go for Kenny Dougal. Yeah, Kenny Dougal's a bit of a weird one really. I certainly wouldn't say that he's been Blackpool's Player of the Season, but he's certainly had his moments throughout a year in a Blackpool side who have been, you know, quite solid for the majority of the season. This season for Dougal was all about him establishing himself as a Championship player, because he couldn't really do the same last time around when he was at Barnsley, and I certainly think he's gone some way in doing that. Next up for Bristol City, I'm going to go for Thomas Callas. Daniel Bentley won their Player of the Season award last time round, but Thomas Callas I've got a very good feeling about this time round. Yeah, I've got a feeling that no Bristol City defenders will be winning their Player of the Season award this time around. Really sloppy at the back for the majority of the season. Bristol City have kept just 5 clean sheets all year round, which is the joint worst record in the Championship for keeping goals out, alongside Peterborough and Reading. Next up for Cardiff City, I'm going to go for Perry and G. Now, it's been a difficult season for Cardiff, but to be fair to Perry and G, he's had to adapt to a new role this season, sort of playing as a right-sided centre-half, and he's been used absolutely all over that back line. He's played on the left, on the right, in the middle, as a wing-back, as a full-back, absolutely everywhere, and he's also started more games for Cardiff than any other player this season, so I don't think that's the worst shout in the world from the start of the season. Next up for Coventry, I'm going to go for Gustavo Hamer. Okay, once again, not a bad shout from me here. I'd say that Gustavo Hamer has improved pretty much on all elements of his game from last season. His numbers have certainly improved as Coventry have romped up the league this time around. 3 goals, 9 assists this season. I think he's had a lot more consistency to his game, whereas last season it felt like he played in moments a little bit more. But yeah, always going to be a big fan of Gustavo Hamer. I don't think that's the worst shout in the world. For a pick for Derby, I'm going to go with Tom Lawrence. He's been handed the captain's armband by Wayne Rooney, so clearly he's seen something in him, you know, in training, or he's seen something with his mentality, who thinks, okay, he's got to be, you know, one of the leaders in this team now. You know, this season could go one of 2 ways for Lawrence. Either he does step up, or he sort of continues on the same sort of inconsistent path and Derby end up getting relegated. Now, to be fair to Tom Lawrence, I was quite sceptical of him being given the captain's armband by Wayne Rooney at the start of the season, and while there have been moments where, you know, people would have maybe questioned his leadership, you know, he's lost his head a few times this season, picked up a couple of red cards and things like that, undoubtedly he's been Derby's most, I'd say, technical player, and his quality has meant that, you know, they were able to keep alive this survival bid for as long as they actually did. 11 goals, 5 assists this season. He will be certainly not short of offers come the summer. Next up, and for Fulham, I'm going to go with Tosin Adarabioyo. Okay, I mean, Adarabioyo did make it into the official Championship team of the season, but I think I tried to avoid the obvious one there by saying Mitrovic, really, who undoubtedly will have been Fulham's Player of the Season. But But Adebayo done well for himself, been part of a really solid defence, but there's no taking away from Mitro, is there? For Huddersfield Town, of course I'm going to go for Josh Koroma. Oh, I could have picked literally anyone for Huddersfield and it would have been a valid shout, apart from Josh Koroma, who's not really been that main guy for them this season that I expected him to go ahead and be. His numbers have fallen off, and his role in the side also, you know, a lot of his appearances this season have come in off from the bench. 15 appearances from the bench this season for Josh Koroma, and on a personal level, like individual performances and things like that, Koroma's probably not lived up to the billing that he'd have, you know, set for himself at the start of the season, even with Huddersfield as a team, you know, flourishing without him. Hull City, I am going to go with Malik Wilks. I do feel like the majority of Hull's goals this season will come from those wide players sort of looking to cut inside. Well, I was right when I said that the majority of Hull's goals were going to come from either side. I just didn't know that they pretty much all come from the left-hand side and from Keane Lewis-Potter. Malik Wilks has had a bit of a frustrating season with injury. He's only played 17 matches where he started this season. Got 3 goals in that time, but been a little bit of a frustrating one with injury, really. Luton Town, I'm going to go with Alan Campbell. And now I've liked the look of quite a few of the signings that Luton have made so far in this transfer window. They've been really busy as they sort of refreshed the squad as they're looking to improve on their 12th placed finish from last time. Okay, I think that Alan Campbell's had a good season for Luton. He probably wouldn't be my personal pick for their overall player of the season, but he's definitely done the job for them. I think he's probably grown into that side as the year's gone on, really. You know, fitted this Luton side like an absolute T in terms of what Nathan Jones wants from a midfielder. And like I said, I think he's only got better as the season's gone on, similar to how Luton's trajectory has generally gone this season. Next up then for Middlesbrough, I've got a really good feeling about Marcus Tavernier this year, you know. Last year I thought we got some really good performances from him. What it's about this time round is just getting up the amount of sort of goal contributions he's picking up for this season. And okay, do you know what? In terms of the level of performances, I think that Tavernier's definitely took a step in the right direction this season for Middlesbrough. I think that working under Chris Wilder has certainly helped him out. He's played a few different roles for them, either through the middle or on that right hand side. The only problem is that he's not really bumped up his numbers to the level that I expected at the start of the season. Last season he got 3 goals, 4 assists. This season just gone 1 better than that so far, got 3 goals, 5 assists. But as an overall contributor, I'd certainly say that he's been up there in terms of performance levels for Middlesbrough this season. Next up for Millwall, I'm going to go for George Saville. I'm backing him to have a really good return to his previous club and for him to just hit the ground running this season. Yeah, to be fair to Saville, I think he's been a steady addition to this Millwall side this season, obviously on his return to the Den, and the preferred partnership in the middle for the vast majority of the season has been Billy Mitchell next to George Saville, but there'll probably be a few more picks I'd go before him as Millwall's player of the season this time around. For Nottingham Forest, I've got to be backing the boy Brennan Johnson. Okay, yes, I will take this one every day of the week. Brennan Johnson has been absolutely superb for Nottingham Forest and probably my personal pick for their player of the season. He was just coming off the back of a terrific loan spell with Lincoln as they made the playoffs in League One, scoring 11 goals for them in the process, and already 25 goal contributions in the Championship, which is absolutely staggering. I think, to be honest, he's even surpassed my expectations of him at the start of the season. In January there was plenty of Premier League interest in him, and if Forest aren't to be promoted this season, you can bet that's going to come back in the summer. For Peterborough United, I'm going to go for Sammy Smodic. Yeah, I mean, Sammy Smodic has chipped in with a few goals, to be fair. He scored that brace against Bristol City, and more recently has been getting back on the score sheet as well. But I think that with a lot of Peterborough players probably struggle for consistency this time around, and dare I say it, maybe another season in League One for a player like Smodic wouldn't do him the world of harm. To my side, Preston North End, I'm going to go for Ben Whiteman. We signed him in January and saw shades of what he was capable of doing last season. I feel like Ben Whiteman's a bit of an opinion splitter in the North End fan base, to be completely honest. As it goes, I quite rate Ben Whiteman, but I'd certainly say that he's fluctuated in terms of his own performances throughout this season. I think there are moments where on a good day he's got it in to absolutely control the game of football. You know, thinking back to Blackpool at home, probably one of Whiteman's best performances of the season. But there are other instances where he can get a little bit overrun, and you know, once runners get in behind him, can come up a little bit short in a few aspects. But 4 goals, 4 assists, I think he's definitely improved this season, but probably a couple of the shouts before him in terms of our player of the season this time around. QPR this season, I'm going to go for Chris Willock. QPR just seem to have a bit of a knack of getting the best out of these sort of players. Alright, there is absolutely no debating this one. Chris Willock has hands down been QPR's best player this season, and you know, it's been no surprise to see them coming unstuck in games more recently, ever since he's picked up that injury. But 7 goals, 11 assists, but even that doesn't paint the picture of just how influential he's actually been to this QPR side this season. We saw shades of it towards the back end of last season, but this time around, when he's fully fit and on it, Willock's just different gravy in the Championship. So good. For Reading this season, I'm going to go with Ovie Ejaria. I would go with John Swift, but he tends to pick up an injury every now and again, so his fitness can't always be relied upon. Oh, if only I'd gone the other way round for these two players, because John Swift has kept himself fit pretty much all season, and he's been unbelievable for Reading. And Ejaria, on the other hand, has sort of blown hot and cold and has missed large chunks of the season through injury. Ejaria, only 19 starts this time around. When he's good, he can be very good. And I remember a performance right back at the start of the season against Fulham where I think he scored the brace and he was absolutely untouchable. You know, on his day, he's still an unbelievable dribbler and technician and things like that, but because of injuries and consistency, we've not quite seen it on a regular basis from Ejaria this time round, and Swift has just hit new levels. With Sheffield United, I want to go with Sander Berge. You know, if he doesn't leave, then I really think he could be massive for Sheffield United this season. Okay, to be fair, Sander Berge missed a quite large chunk of the season in the first part. Okay, to be fair, Sander Berge missed a quite large chunk of the season initially because of, I think, a hamstring injury, but more recently I think that Heckingbottom's been getting more out of him, probably in a more advanced role. He's popped up with some important goals for Sheffield United so far this season, and while other players probably have a more valid claim for their player of the season, he certainly chipped in. Next for Stoke City, I've got a good feeling about Mario Vrancic this year, you know. From the start of the season up until about December time, not only was Vrancic Stoke's best player, but he was arguably one of the best players in the Championship. His creative numbers were absolutely off the charts. He was popping up in big moments for Stoke, and when they were looking like quite an established top 6 outfit, Vrancic was absolutely thriving in that side. But into the second half of the season, Vrancic just hasn't quite been that same player, and Stoke haven't really been that same side either. Swansea City, I'm going to go for Ben Cabango. I do really like Ben Cabango, and he's probably been one of Swansea's more consistent performers at the back, but based on how this season has gone for Swansea, where their shortcomings have come, you know, more defensively, you'd have to give their player of the season to one of their forward players, probably Joel Perreault. Finishing it off with West Brom, I'm going to go for Callum Robinson. It's been a shame to see how this season's unfolded really for Callum Robinson, because I think he started out the season really quite well actually. You know, he scored on the opening day against Bournemouth. I thought, you know, dropping back down to the Championship probably would have suited Robinson as well, and although his numbers have still been decent this season in the context of West Brom's squad, you know, he's got 7 goals, 8 assists, so up there as one of their leading figures in terms of goals and assists this season. The second half of the season hasn't been great from Robinson from an individual standpoint, and it does feel like maybe he'll be one of those players who maybe moves on in the summer as they look towards a bit of a rebuild. But guys, there we have it. Those were all the players from the start of the season that I was predicting to win your club's Player of the Season award. Do you think I got your club spot on? Probably not, is the likelihood. But if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Loads of stuff coming out over the next few weeks as we get to the conclusion of this Championship season, so you won't want to miss a thing. Apart from that though guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.